Yes, he did. Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Well, thank you very much for joining us for another edition of Donnybrook Breaking News regarding the baseball lockout. We'll get to that. But first, let's meet our panelists, starting with Wendy Wiese, the media veteran and co-host of the Jennifer and Wendy Show on KTRS. Mr. Bill McClellan, one of our founders from STLtoday.com and your St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Another founder, he's Ray Hartmann from RawStory.com, the Riverfront Times, and KTRS. And he edits the news and writes a column at the St. Louis American. And this past week, he was a recipient of the Urban League's 2022 Outstanding Merit Award, along with Ruthie Zell from 9PBS, Alvin Reid. So congratulations, Alvin.
Well done, you.
Well deserved. Ruth was deserved.
Well,
yes,
we knew you before you were a superstar. I'll put it that way. Hey, why don't we start with you? Your opinions on the lockout. It looks like the baseball season for the Cardinals will start at home on the 7th of April, so that's good news. Overall, what's your advice for next time?
Well, next time, okay, if you're going to lock the players out on December 1st, just announce that we're not coming back until January 5th. And then after January 5th, we're not coming out of the room until we get a settlement. The only reason these first 2 weeks of the season have been jeopardized is because they just weren't doing anything. And that's just silly to me. But, you know, who am I to say? Cubs series will not be made up, is what they're saying right now.
Oh, really?
Well, that's the Cardinals don't want to face it.
Oh, right.
At the opening day, they should have to play the old Buffalo Springfield song, which is "Nobody's right if everybody's wrong."
That's right.
They ought to play that. It's a pox on both their houses, but fortunately, there'll be a baseball season. That's more important.
You know, unfortunately, we got the designated. I hate to be down on that.
No, I'm down on that part of it.
The designated hitter, you know, I don't like that.
I don't either.
And expanded playoffs, making it more like hockey and less like the days when there was pennant winners who played in the World Series.
Yeah.
So
you're a traditionalist. I don't like the DH. I don't like it. I'm not a DH.
Well, Bill, I kind of thought that given all the events of the world, it seemed like the baseball lockout was rather trivial this year. And I notice you're wearing a blue and yellow shirt. Is that in support of Ukraine?
no, it's the first shirt I grabbed, Charlie.
Okay, I thought it was purposeful, but...
I got pink elephants in my shirt. Nothing intentional.
Okay, well, having said that, Representative Ann Wagner is in favor of illuminating the Gateway Arch blue and yellow. As it turns out, an act of Congress is required to get that done. Meanwhile, Representative Cori Bush was one of just 17 members of the House of Representatives, one of 2 Democrats, who voted against the ban on the importing of Russian oil. Any thoughts on either of those moves?
Sure. On Cori Bush first, it's very typical of Cori Bush. Everything seems to be symbolism on her part. You know, it's not going to change the price of oil at all, but it's a symbol. And, you know, I get tired of these symbols. And on Ann Wagner and the rest of the Missouri delegation supporting these lights in Ukraine, it wasn't that long ago that Congress voted to give arms to Ukraine, and President Trump said no, he wanted to make a deal with Zelensky first, and I didn't hear Ann Wagner upset about that. And then more recently, when Ann Wagner stood up for Margaret Green Taylor,
Marjorie
Taylor
Green.
You know, and said, you know, after Ms. Green's a tweet surfaced in which she said that the Jews caused wildfires in California for profit, and Mrs. Wagner said, you know, well, you know, she's going to support her, but keep an eye on her. And I thought that's ridiculous. And just a week and a half ago, Ms. Green went into the America First Political Action Committee, which is a white supremacist group, where they were chanting Putin, Putin, Putin. And, you know, you can't, I'm always saying you can't blame lawyers for who they defend, but I think you can hold politicians accountable for who they support. So if Mrs. Wagner wants to support Marjorie Taylor Greene, I just hope Ukraine isn't fooled. I mean, that our delegation supports Ukraine unless it's politically difficult, and then we don't.
And
so.
there were. I agree. Well, so well said, but really well said.
Very.
And I would add to it that recently there were a couple of Republicans, and I can't remember. It wasn't Cheney or Adam. Yeah, Kinzinger. But it was a couple of new Republicans that stood up and said, "We're not going to make an issue out of oil. We understand. We're not going to hold that against Biden." And it wasn't so much kumbaya. They were doing the right thing, Americans first. If Ann Wagner, I would love it, as much as I'm not necessarily a fan. She's a decent person. If she would get up and do something like that, I'd be the first to want to cheer her. But until anyone in politics is willing to start sowing some unity as Americans first and politicians second when it comes to this war, on either side. I'm not saying they got to love Joe Biden or anything like that, but until that happens, everybody wanting to come together to light up the arch, it's just so meaningless.
But Ray, it was Cori Bush who voted against Biden. She's the one who didn't have the unity.
No, but I'm talking about, I agree. I'm not exempting her.
I always say about Cori.
I'm saying same with her.
Yeah,
They've got to stand up as a nation. I don't think it's any different for her.
I'm like a broken record with Cori Bush. She's sincere without being serious, and this is just another one you go, oh, Cori.
Yeah, but we have, we've all, those of us, on the radio, I'm sure that those of you in print who have been interviewing people who have loved ones in Ukraine, and they say that all of this symbolism is actually, it's deeply meaningful to the people of Ukraine. So,
good. Well, I was kind of going to say that, but further, I'm going to say, I hope I never get on your bad side.
Eloquent.
Eloquent.
Okay. Right out of the gate.
The night is young.
Right out of the gate.
Who says you're not on my bad side?
No, and by the way,
and then second,
that's great.
I think, listen, for Ann Wagner, for all that, I would like to see the lights on the arch, and if we called Cori Bush and Ann Wagner up and said, hey, it's between one of you two to flip the switch.
Yeah.
They'd be knocking each other down, trying to get down
You're
there and flip that switch.
Point.
So,
You're probably right.
Yeah, it's a lot of symbolism, like you said.
And I think it's a good idea. I didn't mean to suggest that.
How about another topic? We'll go to you, Wendy Wiese, on Joe Vaccaro, member of the St. Louis Board of Aldermen and a member of the Public Safety Committee, which oversees police and fire and ambulances, et cetera. I don't think we talked about this last week, but he was pulled over for going 76 in a 60 on 44 by a police officer. And then he went to the press, my show, perhaps yours, and Ray, and he complained about the police officer being kind of rude and coughing on him. Well, at that time, everyone said, well, let's see the video if there was a body camera. And there was, and it was released. And it turns out that the responding officer wasn't rude. He wasn't wearing an N95 mask, which I think he should have been. He did Joe got out of the car after he was pulled over, which is completely inappropriate. Everybody knows that. Rookie error. You're pulled over by the police. You don't get out and walk toward the vehicle. But there were a couple of things that concerned me. One was he did produce his insurance, and he was given a ticket for not having insurance after first being unable to find it. And the responding officer said, well, just tell that to the judge. And then we later found out from KMOV that the speeding ticket was reduced to excessive noise. So we paid a $207 fine. So who was right, who was wrong? The St. Louis Police Officers Association wants Joe to resign his seat on the Board of Aldermen.
And so does the Ethical Society.
They want him to resign from the committee.
Right. And when you have, when you do have the police department under your watch, as he does on that committee, then I think it's pretty obvious that he should either have some kind of a moment with representatives of those two unions and Chief Hayden and iron all of this out, or he should resign. I don't know whether he should resign from the Board of Aldermen, but it's not a good look. When he said initially that this had nothing to do with politics or political stature, then why did you identify yourself as an alderman to the police officer? And as far as taking too long to produce your insurance information. I think that standing on the side of the highway, I mean, as odd as that sounds, because they're police officers, I know they're trained, but he was concerned about the alderman's safety. I'm sure he was concerned about his own safety. He wasn't going to stand there while the alderman tried to find his insurance. So it's just kind of a mess, and I do think he should seriously consider leaving the Public Safety Committee.
Excuse me. He should definitely resign from the chairmanship. I mean, that is no. And particularly because he brought this up. I mean, he decided guys go to the press and make an issue out of this. I saw from watching the video, I didn't think the cop did anything wrong.
No.
I mean, he did nothing wrong that you can see. There's no evidence, certainly in the video, that I saw that he was coughing on him or any of this stuff. And the officer did the right thing. The thing about the insurance card is standard procedure. If you can't produce it like you should, they automatically do this. It's not a big deal. He didn't say anything rude to him. He just said, you take it to, that's a standard procedure. You don't have it, you go to the thing, they go no harm, no foul, and it's no problem.
No, he did have it.
No, but he didn't produce it.
He did not produce it immediately.
He didn't produce it in a timely fashion.
Right.
The officer doesn't have any
What the officer
obligation.
should have done,
No.
he should have written void on it and then taken it to his superior
that's not
and
what they
said,
do.
the guy,
This is not
I
what
talked
they
to
do.
police officers in other jurisdictions, and that is what happens.
You
do not give a ticket for something you know is a fiction.
No.
And that's what happened here.
But he told him in a very non-combative way, take it to the judge.
The officer,
That means he's got to take time out of his life to go to a judge.
Or get an attorney and let the attorney do it.
Right.
I mean, I didn't think the officer did anything wrong.
No.
But I don't think that Vaccaro should have to resign.
It was in the late 90s, but that happened to me. I got a speeding ticket in St. John's, whatever the community is, you know, right there. And actually, it wasn't even that. I had a light out, and they stopped me and said, like, you know, you've got a tail light out, all right, but I didn't have my proof of insurance. And the office, I said, it's in here, I just can't find it. He said, like, you'll have a date, just show up and show up. You don't even have to do that. Just go to the courthouse and show it. But I said, that's cool. That's fine.
Did you have was your light out?
Yes.
Well, that's what you got the ticket. If your light was on.
No. I'm saying they were just telling me, giving me a warning that the light was out, okay? All right. But they asked for my proof of insurance, and I couldn't find it. And he said, okay, well, you're getting a summons or whatever. You just have to show it. So that happened to me. Now, why he couldn't just do that, I don't know. Then, two, this is what concerns me. You're on a committee, and how long did it take for them to get body cams in the city of St. Louis? How many meetings did he go to where this was discussed? Where are we going to get the money from? And so was he just oblivious to all this? See, this is like trying self-importance where, you know what, I was against him, I was for him, but then the day you get into it with a police officer, you aren't smart enough to realize that you're on camera. And two, if I had got out of a car and approached a police officer, y'all would probably have flowers on the table, right?
I was going to say, you know he's a white guy because anybody else is going to get out of that car. He'd been dead.
Well,
I disagree. I think he got more. I think he got more of a punishment because Michelle Woodling, who is a spokesperson for the police department, said in October that when the city started its enhanced traffic stops, it was not going to be enforcing lack of insurance or broken lights.
Okay, Charlie, first of all, you keep talking about this insurance thing. I want to know what you're speeding, but we can talk about that later.
He just had a light out. My client had a light out. That was it.
I got to tell you, first of all, this insurance is nothing. You just go into the court and it's nothing. The problem is the biggest thing that was done wrong in this whole encounter was him getting out of that car. That's the
exactly
first thing.
Right.
Second thing, I don't know that he has to quit the Board of Aldermen because they voted him in.
But the committee, he better make a mea culpa.
He has no business being on that committee.
I think he does. I mean, I think what he did was wrong, but it wasn't awful. Getting out of the car was bad judgment.
No, you don't. But you don't attack police officers and refer to them.
What are you talking about? That's everyone's livelihood these days.
You don't come out and go to the press.
As if he's the first. What are you talking about? People throw things at police officers. They shout epithets.
He's an alderman who presides over the
exactly.
committee.
He's got a son who's a cop.
That's fine. You don't. My view is, if you throw things at police officers, you don't stay chairman of the Public Safety Board. This is the
You do get elected to office, though.
I didn't say he should quit as an alderman. I said he doesn't. At this point, you've got both police union officers wanting him gone. He shouldn't be in that position as a committee person.
No.
We're going to take a time out here because in June we're inviting everybody to join us for Donny Bash. It's our live broadcast at the Sheldon and a big fundraiser for 9PBS. Here are some of the details.
If you're tuning in because you're a real fan of Donnybrook, well, let me tell you something. There is a great experience waiting for you when you attend Donny Bash. This year, and it's only once this year, it's on Thursday, June 9th at the Sheldon Concert Hall. It's a wonderful venue. They actually take the entire set from Donnybrook, and it's right there on stage at Sheldon Concert Hall. And you will be in the audience, and it couldn't be easier to be there. When you join us right now as a sustaining member at $12 a month, you'll get not one ticket, but 2 tickets to this Donny Bash. Plus, you'll get the new 9PBS mug. Now, if you would rather just have 1 ticket or the mug, just give a one-time contribution to 9PBS of $75. And don't forget that with either of these membership levels, you will receive the 9 magazine for the full year of your membership. Plus, you will have access to 9PBS Passport, which is a members-only benefit that will give you a vast array of programs that are some of your favorites on 9PBS or national PBS programs like Masterpiece. And you will be able to watch those programs anytime, anywhere. Now, Donny Bash is truly a unique experience. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Join us right now as a sustaining member at $12 a month, and we will send you those 2 tickets plus the new 9PBS mug. But join us right now.
We sure want you to join us in June for our big fundraiser. And wouldn't that handsome mug look great on your kitchen table? Plus those 2 ducats to our broadcast live. We haven't done this in 2.5 years. It's really a lot of fun. We meet early in the evening and share a couple of cocktails. And there's a meet and greet, shaking hands, or maybe fist bumps now that we're coming out of the pandemic. And then we have the live broadcast from 7 to 8. You know about that. Afterwards, we retire once again to I guess, appetizers and some adult beverages or some carbonated soda, whatever you prefer. But it's a lot of fun. It's our big fundraiser for 9PBS. As you know, we don't have commercials here, and so we rely on your generosity. You guys make this happen, and I think I speak for many in St. Louis. This is a civic treasure. 9PBS is giving schooling to the kids during the pandemic and outstanding award-winning programs throughout the broadcast day.
That's so true. When we couldn't get out to Lincoln Center, 9PBS brought Lincoln Center into our homes.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to continue to be very grateful for that participation the farther we get away from the pandemic.
And the station has treated us with nothing but respect since day one in terms of ever just full
and keeping
kind of
everybody
editorial
safe.
Freedom, and they've had a put up, as our audience knows, with a lot of eye roll moments over the years, but from us. But no, they've been great to us, and I really mean it. They've just been great to us. Everyone right up through current President Amy Shaw has been couldn't be more respectful of us, and we're real. This is
great,
a small
especially
way
Amy Shaw. Here.
She doesn't need to get a big head about herself. No, I'm just saying that they really have, right from Mr. Hargrove from the beginning through
Jack Galmish,
through all of them, and that does matter. I mean, that's not a given, and we've been lucky that they've supported us, and so it's the least we,
we're lucky that you support us.
Exactly.
Lucky with the viewers, and they can come and critique us, which is what people do. I mean, they come to the show and they point out where we went wrong during the show. And before the show, they can suggest what are you going to talk about and tell us what we ought to say. I can always use that.
Afterwards, they always tell me what you guys did wrong.
I like that.
It's
your show. It's the people who watch the show because they support the station. And I do feel like when we do Donny Bash, it's more of a thank you than it is a performance, only in that, I mean, seriously, without people supporting us and without people coming to Donny Bash and being fans of Donnybrook, we wouldn't be on the air. True. And we just can never really forget that. I mean, like you said, we don't have commercials, you know.
And we're all members of Channel 9, and you do feel that pride of ownership when people talk about Channel 9 and how much it means to think, yeah, I'm a member.
So true. So there's the phone number on the screen. Dial that or text it, give, and we'll see you in June. Wonderful gift for Mother's Day, Father's Day, or any other occasion, or just to reward yourself and help 9 PBS. All right, Ray, I'm going to ask you about a measure in Jefferson City, your favorite town, I know, and the people there. Well, this plan would restrict the ability of hospitals to put restrictions on visitors. You know, during COVID-19, a lot of people who were battling COVID, in some cases tragically dying of it, were not able to have family members with them in their final moments. And I generally do not look for the General Assembly for any medical advice whatsoever. But in this case, I'm on their side. I think that the hospital restrictions were too strict when it came to denying grandma and grandpa the ability to be with a loved one in their final moments on earth.
I'm trying to think if I could agree with anybody less, respectfully. First of all, I think the hospitals of Missouri are quite capable of determining their own visitation policies based on their health needs and their professional judgment. The legislature needs to stay in its own lane, do the thing it's good about. I wouldn't want hospital administrators trying to figure out how to do slimy deals with lobbyists. That's what they do. They do that well. No one should interfere with their ability to do deals with lobbyists down in Jeff City. But seriously, no, the hospitals, and everybody knows it's tragic, horrible in the COVID when people had to die alone. I understand that. But that's not government's role to tell our hospitals how to manage a very sensitive situation.
Well, and I'm just reluctant to think, yeah, because they're expanding it rather quickly in terms of the significant other of the patient. And is it 2 or 3 people? 2 or 3 people will also be allowed. This is way, way too early. And one of the sponsors of the bill said that he was only thinking about the vulnerable people in the hospital who need those visitors. And I'm thinking about, what about the vulnerable people in the next bed or down the hallway who have to be concerned about what those additional visitors are bringing into the hospital with them. I mean, we've only been out of it, or hopefully making our way out of it, for a week or so. Just settle down. I mean, I'm okay with an expanded number of, but not 4, not automatically 4 people.
Usually, you know, I hate to go to the, like, speak to the motive, but they could care less about somebody dying alone in the hospital. This is just some more nonsense.
Financial support.
This is just some more, we hate everything from masks to vaccines to anybody who wears a mask and is getting vaccinated. It's just more of that nonsense. They really aren't concerned about anyone dying alone in the hospital. It's just they're running out of time to make a splash with this COVID-19 thing, so they're just going to ride that horse till it collapses. I'm sorry.
I'm not that cynical, Alvin.
I am.
You know,
I'm sorry.
I think it's the most unreported story of the pandemic on how many people died alone, and it just breaks my heart to think about that. And I could understand before the vaccine, when we didn't have PPE, yeah, and we didn't know too much about it. We didn't really know much about COVID-19, but later on, as we moved on, and there was PPE, and there was a vaccine, it just seemed that the measures were too strict. And I think the proof of that is hospitals around the country were opening up to visitors much quicker than they were in our part. And I thought, well, okay, how can hospitals in Dallas get away with this, but not St. Louis?
Well, because it's in Texas. And I'm sure they were wide open. I'm sure the Carnival went into the hospital
but
in
not
Florida.
just there. But I also think that overall, the issue escaped many. I mean, here, the tragedy of people dying alone, like the Boston Globe carried it very well, so did the New York Times. But here, people were just kind of quiet about it.
I think it happened more often in nursing homes.
Yes.
Charlie, where you couldn't get in to see an aging parent. But I don't know if the solution is to just open up the nursing homes and let people come in. And I mean, a pandemic is going to just create certain situations that are terrible.
Right.
Well, I'm not saying that there should be a barbecue at the bedside with every immediate family member and every cousin, but at least one person who's vaccinated with PPE to hold the hand of grandma in her final
then
days.
you're going to have a problem if you're saying only the vaccinated get in.
Well, I would. That's what I'm saying. If I have a problem, I have a problem with it. But
we're also beyond that right now. I mean, we're already beyond this.
Well, they're talking about future pandemics.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right.
I guess I stand alone on the side of...
Nobody, but Charlie, no one at this table...
The people who suffered aren't here to defend.
No one at this table...
And I'm not making light of it.
You're inferring that we're okay with people dying alone. We're not.
Well,
I assure you, we are not. No. We're just saying they don't need to have a family reunion. They don't need to expand it.
I agree with that.
They don't need to open it up that much.
Bill, I want to ask you about Marcus Robinson, the... controversial, I guess, superintendent of the Normandy schools. And as you know, we discussed this in the past, the man never got his PhD. And he has announced that he's going to resign in the next couple of months after the school year. Some people didn't like him because of the PhD. I suspect a lot of people didn't like him because he was supported by organizations that supported charter schools. And in fact, in a previous life, he was the head of a charter school. And I think that there were entrenched educational interests that just didn't like his style. What do you think about this?
You're probably right. I mean, he did make $215,000 a year for 2 years. There's a lot of people be willing to, sign up for that. And he was only certified in Missouri to be a substitute teacher. And you think, well, I don't know if the guy should be a superintendent if that's all he's certified for. And certainly he came in at a terrible time. I mean, Normandy was having huge problems already, and then you have the pandemic, which especially hurt poor kids. So, I mean, I can't look at his body of work and say he didn't do well. I mean, because he didn't, but not his fault. But he said he was going to get a PhD, and he didn't, so too bad for him.
He was unqualified, period. Full stop. And the people you refer to as entrenched educational interests, to me, the ones I've known over the years are teachers and administrators who care way, way more about the children under their care than the charter school administrators and the charter school profiteers in many cases. And so it isn't even close. If you want to bring up a comparison with the entrenched educational interests, I will take them every time.
Well, I don't know why. Oh.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, okay, now Normandy, they got taken over by the state,
right.
And now they are provisional, which means they get to elect 2 school board members, and they have an election coming up. Why was he hired not as an interim? And if you don't have your PhD or are not making progress toward it, 2 years from now you're gone anyway. So I don't know why they kind of made that deal in the first place. In his goodbye letter, he said he had 4 undergraduate degrees and 2 from Ivy League schools. And I have no reason to not believe that.
Right.
But if that is the truth, then you were either busy counting money or too lazy to just get your PhD.
Well,
and that says something to me.
No, I think he had his master's, though, didn't he?
He's not the story. He's not the story. It's the children who have the lowest scores in the history of the state in math and in English. Yeah. Those kids are the story.
Well, let me attack my fellow founder for just a minute here.
I'll get out of the way.
When you were talking about like the charter schools and the profiteers, there's really good and well-intentioned people all through the system, and even in the charter schools, right? And they're all trying to push the rock up the hill, and it's very, very difficult. And
that's exactly true.
I think that's fair. And if you talk about
in fact, there's a lot of teachers from public schools who, after 30 years, retire and then they go work in charter schools. So I thought that was a
point taken.
That was a cheap shot.
I think people. Well, the cheap shot was aimed at people like Mr. Robinson.
Well, let me tell you about Mr. Robinson.
In my opinion, because I don't think
he's a great guy.
Okay, good.
And I think that of the top 10 needs of the Normandy school kids, like not even in the top 10 is having someone in charge with a PhD. Because you have a PhD doesn't mean you are a better educational instructor than the next guy.
No, I understand, but you've
known PhDs, and they're great not because of the PhD, but because of what they have in the Valentine and their knowledge about dealing with people.
But that stood in the way of the school district getting full accreditation.
Right.
And that's the only problem I have with it.
Well,
you know,
and you want somebody who's qualified, Charlie, and you might look at education and go, oh, master doesn't mean much, or this or that. But it just shows a certain level of education qualification.
It really doesn't. You know, Abe Lincoln had, like, what, 1 year of formal education? I think he did okay. And there are a lot of people who are great educators who don't have the PhD. But there's an educocracy where they, you know, you get more money with a PhD. Maybe that's why he wasn't making $250,000, which is a lot of superintendents get. You know, $215,000 for the Normandy schools is not a lot of money considering how difficult that job is.
$250,000 is not a lot of money.
By superintendent standards.
Are you so?
Now, and if you go through the Normandy schools, if you go through the Normandy schools, you will say, who in the heck in his right mind would want to work here? Because the conditions are so poor.
You're comparing him to, I just want to be clear, Abraham Lincoln wasn't the superintendent of failing school district, okay, with these kids who have the lowest test scores, who will be so far behind the rest of the world in their classes. I'm sorry, that does not make him Abraham Lincoln.
Well, I will say he did lead the charge to increase the taxes in that district so that they could repair the mold in the locker room and fix the chairs in the theater and repair some of the walkways between the buildings in the most deplorable conditions. And I think he had the best interest of the kids.
He was the superintendent, Charlie. He's supposed to do that.
And when we had a cleanup on North McKnight, Market Street, rather, off of Lulu, he showed up with his 2 kids and he was picking up litter and trash.
We're not.
You did.
No, I said he was not qualified.
You impugned his integrity earlier.
No, I didn't.
You said that he was there for the money, blah, blah, blah.
I didn't say that. First of all, I don't care how much money he was paid. I'm not into that issue.
But if you know that a PhD is required, why would you not get the PhD?
And he was also part of this, what's it called, Opportunity Trust, which the folks that I know
I agree with you, Ray, but this really doesn't have anything to do with that.
My point is, some of the opposition to him for what you call the entrenched educational interest or whatever was because there's a sense, and it's at the macro level, not each teacher, that the charter schools, through organizations like Opportunity Trust, have really put themselves as an enemy of public education in their minds. Now, that's not him in particular. And the question, I think charter schools are fine if they're owned and operated. If they're going to be public schools, they got to have the accountability that the public school system has, whether you like it or not. And I always call them schools without rules, which means, well, if it's such a great idea, then enact it in all the schools. If such and such an innovation, and originally that was the concept, we'll try some special innovation, but now you've basically got competing organizations that are sort of nonprofits, like this, that are competing and taking money out of and bleeding dry the public school system.
You know what?
And that's not
but you're saying that with those test scores, he was not paid enough. That he should have been made.
Well, the test scores were very low when he got there.
Right, but I understand that. But they're lower now, post-pandemic. Facts are facts. I mean, I understand that he's a great guy and he helped with your trash pickup. But he is
that comes from
not. I'll tell you, I mean, he is not a martyr.
If he had helped with my trash pickup,
I'm sure he's a wonderful man.
I think he was a great educator, and it's too bad that he's not in the Normandy schools. And it's not like people are lining up to work there these days.
Well, who was it that I interviewed before him? The doctor. God, I'm so sorry. His predecessor, Norman.
Think of that.
No, that's not. Go ahead.
Okay, let's go to Alvin Reid. I want to ask you about solar panels. We know that, especially now with the events in Ukraine, Russian invasion there, people are talking more and more about, hey, let's not rely on Russian oil or natural gas. And then for a long time, people have been concerned about nuclear power. And so they thought, hey, how about these alternative forms of power like wind and solar? And so people are putting solar panels on their houses and their yards. And now in Jefferson City, there's a bill that would say that a homeowners association, you know, the group of people who oversee a subdivision or a neighborhood, cannot nix or veto solar panels on homes in Missouri. What do you think?
Well, if I had, like, you know, more money and a big house, especially if I was building it, I would have solar panels. I really would. And I would like to live in a neighborhood where everybody had them and we were doing our part, okay? I cannot stand these associations, okay? I don't know why people would ever live under that guise. I mean, to me, it is like a protection organization. I mean, you hate to say like La Cosa Nostra, but it just sounds like it. Like you better, you pay or else. Like, all right, well, I just don't get it. But the second you sign on, you've signed on. And if they tell you you can't have solar panels, you can't have solar panels. My advice would be move or not live there in the first place.
I'm surprised that public neighborhoods still have homeowners associations.
Well, we have one.
You do?
And do you know of anybody who?
I happen to be the president of
You
one.
are well.
La Cosa Nostra, huh, Alvin?
Right.
Well,
He's actually
let me
known
say
there
this.
as Don
And
Brennan.
in this case,
Don Brennan.
Brennan.
Don Brennan.
I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse.
may not
I
ever.
actually agree with the General Assembly. I think right now, in this nation's history, we are at a point when we have to encourage people to create their own electricity as much as possible. And if someone wants to put the solar panels in the front yard, and I talked to Mark Lapata, who's a local solar panel expert, he says that does happen once in a while. And if people want to put it on the roof facing the street, that's okay, because we have to wean ourselves off of natural gas and oil from it.
I agree with that, but is there a problem with solar panels like reflecting light into somebody else's house? I mean, I have no idea about it.
I haven't heard about that.
If my neighbor puts a solar panel farm up in their front yard, I'm gonna probably not be too pleased. I mean,
Unless you think it's like a way to make the world a better place.
would it not still be a better place if they were on the roof?
But they're not ugly, though. That's one thing, is that I kind of feel like, you know, to me, I'm just that space kind of kid, and they still remind me of, like, you know, the arms on the satellites. Yeah, you know, like, this is kind of cool. So it doesn't bother me. Now, it may really bother some people. They may just consider it to be unsightly, but I don't have a problem with it. But if the homeowners association does, and I live there, then I guess they could tell me that
we're not allowed to have fixed basketball, you know, goals.
Well, my question for you is what is the status of this bill right now? Because I would be stunned if Jefferson. I mean, I think the concept of
so you like it?
I'm not opposed to the concept of of Jefferson City of state government saying we got to do something about, you know, climate change and so forth. But I think it will be a cold day down below when this legislature
under the
does
solar
that.
panels.
Yes, that I can't imagine that Missouri's going to actually pass this. They haven't passed it.
It does seem odd. It does.
And so I do not.
I
think it may
it'll be like it'll be like medical marijuana. Gambling's coming down. Right, gambling's coming down the line.
We're not going to do this.
They're going to line up their buddies and pals to get the contracts. All of a sudden, it'll be a great idea when, you know, when Reid McClellan, Reid, right, gets a solar panel.
All right, okay.
He keeps changing the title.
We will see you in June at Donny Bash. It's our big fundraiser for 9 PBS and Donnybrook. Here are some details on how you can join us at the Sheldon.
There is more of Donnybrook to come, so please don't go away. We're going to take just a moment here out of the program to cordially invite you to become a member of 9 PBS right now. You can give us a call, you can go online, and you can support Donnybrook and all the other programs that you and your family enjoy here on Channel 9. And as always, we have very special thank you gifts that go with the program. For example, call and become a member at the $12 monthly level, $12 for everything you and your family enjoy here on Channel 9, and we will send you the new 9 PBS mug, very handsome mug. We've had a lot of those over the years. This is a new one, and I think it's a cut above. Plus, and this is best of all, you'll get 2 tickets to Donny Bash, and that's coming up on June 9th. It'll be held at the Sheldon, as it always is. They will put up the set on the stage, and the Donnybrook cast will be there. You'll have a little time with them before the show begins, and you'll get to watch a live broadcast of the program, and then afterwards, as always, they'll have that wine and cheese soiree after this show, and you'll be able to rub elbows with the cast and get to know them. They're delightful people, and they love to meet their Donnybrook fans. So please call us right now, become a member of 9 PBS, and support all the programs that are important to you, your family, and people all over the St. Louis region. Call us now.
Call us now and join us in June. This is the first ever Donny Bash in June, and our first Donny Bash in 2.5 years. We've missed you. Hopefully you've missed us as well. And what a fun gift this could be for somebody who wants to support Channel 9 and meet members of the panel. And again, this is at the Sheldon. It's in June, and the sun won't go down till, I don't know, 8:30 or so at night. I think for the first time, we're going to walk outside afterwards, and it'll still be light outside. That'll be nice. But inside, we'll have a rollicking back and forth, unrehearsed back and forth discussion of current issues like we always do, and then raise some money for 9 PBS. And that's the whole point here.
You know what? It would be a great opportunity to introduce a younger person, maybe somebody in their 20s or 30s who is, who is actively engaged in what's going on in the community and interested in the news and events of the day. If you're looking for, because it is kind of hard to give gifts to those young people, and I think that would be a nice way to introduce them to 9 PBS and the work.
Or maybe dissident homeowners of an association.
That's right. Yeah. President, perhaps.
Right, exactly.
Of a unknown homeowners association.
People living.
Don Brennan.
The very well
I'm not here to be made sport of.
Mr. Brennan's neighborhood who keep their heads down at all costs. No, I am. The best testimony of the number of people, a lot of us have organizations or things where we see somebody once a year, and that's with the exception of the pandemic. There's so many people that we won't start dropping names, but we see every year, and they come back every year. It's almost like a little reunion, and just that's really one of the fun things for us is just to see people year in year out come, and I think that shows hopefully that they're having a great time, and I think it's a great point that we need to get some younger folks, and it's a good way to do it.
Yeah, and so I mean, my Rat Pack is coming probably this year. So like I say, the 20 some odds, and it'll be nice, like having them there, and friends and things like that. So true, invite younger people. Now, not to say that I'm not young.
You're young at heart.
But
you are young at heart.
I'm starting to get up there, but no.
Bill's a juvenile delinquent.
Well, when I hear Wendy saying younger people like 30s and 40s, I want to say 50s,
60s, 70s.
Keep going.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll see you in June at the Sheldon, Donny Bash 2022. It's been too long. See you then. Thank you so much. All right, Wendy, there's big news this week that KMOV's general manager, J.D. Sosnoff, announced that his company, Channel 4 on your dial, will be moving out of downtown St. Louis. You and I worked with them at One Memorial Drive for years in that CBS tower, along with Darcy Mays, Benton and Bowles, and right across from the Gateway Arch, prime real estate. But they're moving out, probably to Maryland Heights. Does it make a difference where a television station is located?
I think it does. I think it does. And J.D. Sosnoff is somebody that you and I worked with, and he does not strike anyone who knows him as somebody who makes these decisions lightly. And I'm sure he's put a great deal of thought into it, and there are very sound reasons why he is making this particular move to the county. When you have the hub, and as we know, the hub is downtown. And when your news organizations that follow what's going on downtown feel comfortable leaving, that tells you that there's not a lot happening in downtown, and that's not good.
Well, that was the part I didn't understand. I mean, still, what news stories aren't downtown as far as to what they're covering? Okay, because the news is only that long, and the sports is only that long, and the weather is only that long, and all the sports stuff is downtown. So that was the one part I didn't get. I think that, okay, all right, the rent's cheaper. All right, maybe throw that
Perhaps.
in there. And then
I don't think it's cheaper.
You don't think so? Okay.
Not in Maryland Heights.
Well, that's,
All right.
yeah, it would be interesting to see if there's any public subsidy involved. Then we could see maybe Elliot Davis could cover it. You paid for it. But but I don't think it's that big a deal. I don't like. I mean, we all like to.
But it's the symbolism.
I get it.
Again,
No, and
back
I'm
to
not
the
arguing
symbolism.
that there is a symbolism, but I think at the end of the day, they, as far as I like to think regionally, and as far as being close to things, I mean, they have more people living in St. Charles County than they have in the city, and that's just reality. So they're more central to that. And I'm not saying that's great.
Right.
I don't like it particularly, but it doesn't. At the end of the day, it's what comes on the screen that matters. I don't think it matters to the public that much. It's certainly not great for downtown, and nobody wants to see that.
Well, that's it. It doesn't matter to the viewer where the camera is.
No, I understand.
But I think it's really important when core businesses like newspapers. I mean, and the Post-Dispatch is still downtown, but I remember when the New Orleans Times-Picayune moved out of downtown, and they did it just for the money, but it is kind of an emptying out of the core, and it's not a good feel at all. I think it's a very sad.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I can tell it happens all over the country.
Ray's exactly right. I had dinner the other night with people from Denver. They said their downtown is dead. San Diego, dead. Minneapolis, dead. It's all pandemic. The workers are at home. These are bankers who are telling me this from where they are. And St. Louis is dead right now, too, the downtown. What they're doing, though, is they're moving to the population center. I was told by Josh Allen of Companion Bakery that the population center now in our region is 270 and Page.
That's where they are. That's what I was just saying about St. Charles. I wasn't giving a commercial for St. Charles. I was making the point that is the center of the population. And I think that we need to do everything as a community to think more as a region, and for the people outside of the city and downtown to recognize how important downtown is. I'm not arguing in any way to give up on downtown. I started the RFT there. And it's kind of important to me, but
it's important to all of us.
We have to understand that this TV station, where at the end of the day, where they want to have their employees camp out, that really matters.
But it's just part of a trend.
I get
the whole
it.
thing.
I get it.
If it was just the KMOV, I go, oh, well, KMOV.
Well, I will say,
it's a big trend.
And we should recognize the loss of Gio Obata, 99 years old, just passed away this week, the founder of HOK, the largest architectural engineering firm in the world. And he, of course, was the son of Japanese immigrants whose family was put in a internment camp during World War II. But he got into WashU and became one of the great architects in world history. And so, great loss of a fantastic St. Louisan. And HOK is downtown, by the way. I'll point that out.
And that's
World headquarters.
For now,
Yeah, well.
Please don't move. Right.
Alvin, I want to ask you about a measure in the Board of Aldermen, which passed a preliminary step, and now it goes further in the halls of the local legislature. It would prohibit restaurants from serving soda in the kids' meals. You go to a restaurant with the kids, you get the kids' meal. It's, usually toasted ravioli or grilled cheese, maybe some fries, and then a drink. Well, the drink can be water, milk, or juice if there's no sugar in it, or added sugar, but it can't be soda. What do you think about that?
All right, this is one of those where, I really don't think we are too far along as far as other people are, as far as the nanny state is concerned. I don't think it's as bad as some people make it out to be. And as a result, for some reason, this one doesn't bother me. If a municipality wants to say, okay, we do have this rule. We are going to watch out for the kids in this way. And listen, if they've got to get a boxed apple juice, you're more than free to buy them a gallon Coke that doesn't come with the kids' meal, and they can slurp it in the back seat. That's up to you. But we're just not going to allow you to do it with the kids' meal. That doesn't bother me. Now, it is, what do you call that, oxymoronical that, oh yeah, you can have a greasy hamburger and some fries. Right. That's fine, but soda.
Grilled
cheese.
The irony when the Board of Aldermen just a couple of weeks ago were debating the merits of being able to attend and vote in meetings while they were Zooming from their cars. That to me is that is the ultimate irony, that they're so concerned about public health, that they want to Zoom from their cars while they're attending and voting on aldermanic business. But I think this is absolutely, positively ridiculous. Let the parents decide what their children are going to do. I mean, this is nanny state 2.0 in my opinion.
I, first of all, think their motives are fine.
Their motives are fine.
No, and I'm not saying you aren't, but I'm saying I congratulate them on their motives. I think their timing could not be worse in that the last thing the restaurant industry needs right now, coming out of the pandemic,
more restriction,
while it's hanging on for dear life, is any government at any level. And again, I don't question their sincerity, but the government right now does not need to be putting more restrictions on the restaurant industry, in my opinion. And I think the point, we aren't putting any restrictions on saturated fat or something.
Right.
But I understand that, and it really, I just can't see the timing of it making any sense.
Good point.
Should we inspect restaurants anymore?
Well, but they're talking about violations. The first one, $100. The second one, $200, and then the third one, what, like $500? If you have a child who's drinking a soda? Really?
I mean, I don't know. Is it enforceable?
When,
I mean,
okay. Speaking of the children, and that's what we're most concerned about, Alvin, in Illinois, Land of Lincoln, where last year there was $7 billion of betting, 95% of it online. They relaxed the rules permanently last week, where if you wanted to register for the betting, you know, sports betting, gambling in Illinois, you had to go to what's called a sports book, or a place where you place a bet, or a casino. No more. You can register online. But now, some people who are concerned about gambling in children point out that that allows the kids who are very adept with technology to start betting online because they won't have to show up in person to register. What do you think?
Well, they have to have a credit card, you know, to set up the account. You know, so I don't know where that's coming from. Now, you know, the kids
stolen from my mailbox.
Well, yeah. Now, I will say that yes, a lot of the hanky-panky could be going on, and you know, from what my understanding is, the casino people, unless you're an NFL player, really don't care who's gambling with them. So I don't think they're like really checking out. So like, I think a 12-year-old just made a bet. You know, so I could see where it could be a problem. But so what? I mean, listen, it's here to stay. In this report, Illinois' biggest money-making facilities, #1, Fairmount Park, #2, Casino Queen, DraftKings, right on the other side of the river, i.e., Missouri is flocking over there. We need to get our own game, quit worried about all that, and just let's
So it's okay as long as a 12-year-old is placing a bet if he's not, or she is not drinking a soda. Right?
That's ironically, yes.
If you want to be, I'm trying to keep it all clear.
Keep it straight.
As far as people trying to protect kids from gambling online, you talk about if you want to bet on something, bet on the horses, who's gone the furthest out of the barn, because of that, the horses out of the barn. I mean, they're not regulations like that on people showing up. You know, hopefully there's ways to regulate as best they can access that kids have to all kinds of stuff online, but I don't think that this little rule rule is not going to impact
Remember when the casino
anybody.
used to have to be
I'm not saying right or wrong. It's just not going to
water.
make
Remember the casino used to have to be in a trench that had like 1 inch of water running in underneath.
And at first it was supposed to have to go down the river.
Right. That's right. They had to move.
And then the cruises, they didn't have to move.
That's right.
The boat. It's just not going to work.
And look how well the region did since we introduced casino gaming 30 years ago.
Are solved.
Population decreases, corporations leave.
If you want to be, the state of Missouri is in the gambling business, as are most states. The original concept, when there were when it was at, you know, New Jersey and Nevada and maybe who's going to be next, it made sense for tourism. Now that you got something like 50 states, you know, there is no tourism benefit anymore. Well, saying you could come and gamble
here. The old numbers game of my childhood is now the lottery.
Exactly.
That's right.
And it's just the way it is. I don't. And
Not that exciting, though. Hey, Bill, what do you think about the mayor's plan to have guaranteed basic income? As you know, the city, along with the county, got a lot of American Rescue Plan dollars, and she'd like to start some sort of model program in St. Louis where, you know, people get basic income, a little minimum amount of money from the government.
I think she's ahead of her time, but it won't work. I mean, you know, Andrew Yang, remember, talked about the new economy with fewer jobs, and people are going to have to be given an income. And I think Andrew Yang was onto something. But if a particular city tries to do it alone, all of a sudden, we will have an increase in people, but it'll be everybody here for the basic income.
I think one of the most underrated things about Mayor Jones, Tishaura Jones, is how much of the initial money she has taken to North St. Louis, to kids in the underserved areas of this town. It's easy to forget that let's just say there's a huge difference in the priorities that the city is giving to the distribution of funds in what I think is a way to compensate for years of neglect.
Well, as of January 31st, you only spent of $135 million. What are you talking about?
Definitely, well, I mean, obviously, as she said, there's a lot of rules and regulations that slow that process down. That's frustrating to everybody, but I don't think that's the fault of the mayor. And I will say that, because I don't agree with her on everything, as recently as last week. But I think that what she's done in general to shift that paradigm is good.
Well, what do you think about the guaranteed income?
I think it just sounds like, I don't think it's, they've already done some of it.
Yeah,
they haven't, they already did it.
And I'm confused because I thought there were too many jobs and not enough bodies to fill them. I mean, if you listen to the business owners, they're saying, please, work for me.
The city itself.
That's right now. Openings. I mean, I think that's like looking at the weather and saying it's cold out so much for climate change. I think that we're headed toward a time when there won't be enough jobs.
I think guaranteed income sounds like defund the police, call it something different, and people won't have a problem with it. And all of us got stimulus checks. Okay. And even if we didn't need it or not. So that was a guaranteed income.
Thank you, Alvin. Yours is going to be the last word because that's all she wrote, or he did, or somebody did. Hey, you can write us, care of 9 PBS 3655 Olive Street, St. Louis, Missouri 63108. You can also send those emails, donnybrook@9pbs.org, and we love those tweets, hashtag DonnybrookSTL. Don't forget, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcast source. And we encourage you to call the station as well and join us for Donny Bash in June. It's going to be a great evening. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next week at this time.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9 PBS.